My mother gave my credit card to the man she secretly betrothed me to since I was 12. When I finally opened up about feeling like a human dowry, she smirked and said, well, at least someone wants you. I stayed silent. That was 11 months ago. This morning, she was standing outside my new apartment in tears. Growing up, I collected academic achievements like Pokemon cards, except instead of Charizard, I was hunting for maternal affection. Every A+ earned me a crumb of validation, like a lab rat getting pellets for pushing the right button. I studied until my eyeballs felt like overcooked raisins, joined more clubs than a professional golfer, and had the social life of a monastery monk with a vow of silence. Art class? According to my mother, that was for future baristas. Drama club? Only if I planned to dramatically starve. She was aggressive, calculated, and had zero regard for what I actually wanted. By 16, I'd figured out the game. My worth to my mother was directly proportional to my future tax bracket. I chose pre-med not because I dreamed of saving lives, but because doctors drove Mercedes, and my mother's love apparently had a luxury car minimum. When I got into a top university, she actually hugged me, marking the first time in years I'd felt her arms around me for something other than checking if I'd gained weight. College was 4 years of academic Hunger Games. While my classmates were discovering themselves, I was discovering new levels of exhaustion. They went to parties. I memorized textbooks. They had romantic dinners. I had intimate relationships with my study guides. My mother called weekly for performance reviews disguised as conversations, grading my life choices like a particularly harsh Yelp reviewer. I graduated summa fluid laude and landed a consulting job that paid very well. Finally, my mother looked at me like I was more than a disappointing investment. She threw a party where she paraded me around like a show dog who'd just won Best in Show, except instead of discussing my glossy coat, she bragged about our salary. Then came the dinner that made everything clear as a freshly Windexed window to hell. What I thought was a celebration dinner turned into an ambush proposal featuring 50 relatives, my mother's best friend Patricia, and her 35-year-old son Wayne, a man who looked like if disappointment had taken human form and developed a gambling problem. When he proposed, my immediate reaction was to vomit, but my mother raced beside me, digging her nails into my arm until I responded that I needed time to think, which apparently translated to yes in my mother's dictionary, because she announced our wedding date faster than you can say crushing student debt. The truth unraveled like a cheap sweater soon after. I went to Wayne and asked why he even wanted to marry me. That's when he revealed that his mother and mine had been planning our marriage since I was 12, believing that my pure, devoted, financially stable presence would cure Wayne's gambling addiction, like I was some sort of walking rehab center with a 401k, his debt, a cool $500,000. Their solution, my salary and future earnings. The pieces clicked together like the world's most disturbing jigsaw puzzle. Every pushed achievement, every forbidden social activity, every boys are a distraction lecture. I wasn't being raised. I was being groomed like a cash cow. They moved Wayne into our house faster than you can say restraining order. My mother gave him my credit card for wedding expenses, which apparently included funding his sports betting habit. I watched charges pile up like a Jenga tower built by a toddler. When I found them in my apartment photographing my financial documents, talking about liquidating my assets for Wayne's fresh start, I finally snapped. I fled to a women's shelter with just my laptop and work clothes, feeling like a refugee from my own life. Changed my passwords and emergency contacts faster than my mother could say, but family helps family. My mother's retaliation came swift and spiteful. She filed a missing persons report, claiming I was mentally unstable. Apparently having boundaries meant I needed a psych ward. Our pastor announced to the congregation that I needed prayers for my return to righteousness, making me sound like a prodigal daughter who'd run off to join a cult instead of someone escaping a financial hostage situation. Wayne showed up at my office with flowers, playing the concerned fiancé so convincingly that security almost let him in. Relatives ambushed me everywhere like emotionally abusive ninjas, trying to guilt me back into their pyramid scheme disguised as a family. Then karma arrived with a special delivery. Wayne got arrested for embezzling from his employer. His debts weren't $500,000, they were $4 million, most of which was stolen from his company. This man had more debt than a small country's GDP, but the real kicker came when he called from jail. He said I'd pay for not following through with the deal. What deal, you ask? Apparently my mother owed Patricia a life debt, literally her life and her child's life. Their payment plan? Raised me as a high-earning cash cow for any child of Patricia's choosing. He ended the call with threats that made my blood run colder than my mother's affection, saying I couldn't hide forever from what I owed them. I sat there, a bit terrified, but mostly furious enough to power a small city. Every late night studying, every sacrifice, every time I chose achievement over happiness, it was all part of their twisted investment strategy. I wasn't a daughter, I was livestock with a LinkedIn profile. Part of me wants to disappear completely. Part of me wants to send them an invoice for 25 years of emotional labor, but mostly, I'm ready for some revenge. I dropped my phone into my coworker's bathtub. The water swallowed it instantly, Wayne's threats dissolving into electronic silence. My hands shook as I watched the screen flicker and die, his words still echoing in my mind. You owe us your life. The evidence of his threat vanished with the bubbles rising from my drowning phone. My coworker rushed in at the sound of my strangled cry. She found me kneeling beside the tub, staring at my dead phone like it held the secrets of the universe. I tried to explain about Wayne's call, about the threats, but she just helped me to the couch and made tea. Her kindness felt foreign after weeks of family warfare. 2 weeks crawled by. I existed in a state of hypervigilance, checking over my shoulder constantly, jumping at every notification on my borrowed flip phone. The DMV renewal notice arrived like a summons to hell. I needed my license for work, but leaving my coworker's apartment felt like stepping into a minefield. The DMV waiting room smelled like desperation and floor cleaner. I took a number and found a seat in the corner, keeping my head down. 20 minutes later, the automatic doors slid open. My mother walked in. Time crystallized. She wore the same navy blazer she'd worn to my graduation party, the one where she'd paraded me around like a prize heifer. Our eyes met across the crowded room. Neither of us moved. The universe had apparently developed a sixth sense of humor, forcing us to sit in adjacent waiting areas for the next 2 hours. I watched her from my peripheral vision. She pulled out her phone and started texting rapidly. Her fingers flew across the screen with purpose. I caught a glimpse of her typing, "She's here," before she angled the phone away. My stomach churned. Who was she alerting? Patricia? Wayne's lawyer? The next hour stretched like taffy. We sat 15 feet apart, pretending the other didn't exist. Other people came and went, oblivious to the mother-daughter Cold War playing out in plastic chairs. When her number finally called, she walked past me close enough that I could smell her perfume, the same vanilla scent that used to mean safety when I was 5 and still believed in her love. Back at my coworker's apartment, I tried explaining the life debt situation. The words tumbled out in a desperate rush. They planned my birth to pay a debt. My mother owed Patricia her life, so she raised me as payment. My coworker's expression shifted from concern to something I recognized too well, doubt. Even to my own ears, it sounded insane. A conspiracy theory born from stress and paranoia. She made more tea and suggested I get some rest, but I saw the way she looked at me, the careful distance she maintained. I'd become the crazy relative everyone whispers about at family gatherings. 3 days later, her spouse cornered me in the kitchen. They didn't mince words. The insurance company had flagged my presence due to my connection to Wayne's embezzlement case. I had until Friday to find alternative arrangements. The kindness in their eyes made it worse. They believed they were protecting their family from my delusions. Thursday arrived with a text from the pro bono lawyer. Could I meet at 2 p.m.? But my college friend Theo needed help moving that same day. The choice felt impossible. Legal help versus human connection. Strategy versus loyalty. sketchy. I chose Theo. I needed to feel useful, needed to remember I was more than a walking disaster. We loaded boxes into the rental truck under a gray sky. Every car that passed made me flinch. A blue sedan circled the block twice. A woman in sunglasses sat in a parked car across the street, never looking up from her phone. Paranoia or surveillance? I couldn't tell anymore. While I hauled boxes, my mother unleashed her next weapon, social media. She posted my graduation photos on Facebook, carefully curated to hide my exhaustion. Praying for healing and restoration, she wrote. Mental health struggles can strike anyone. The comments poured in. Sympathy for her, concern about my breakdown, offers of prayer chains and intervention specialists. My borrowed flip phone exploded with notifications. 3 calls in rapid succession, each more devastating than the last. My boss demanded explanations for missed deadlines I didn't know existed. The bank informed me my accounts were frozen pending investigation into fraudulent activity. My landlord texted that my mother had attempted to enter my apartment for a welfare check. I wonder what's really going through the mother's mind during that DMV meeting. She texts, she's here to someone but keeps sitting there for 2 whole hours, just watching her daughter like they're strangers. The walls closed in from every direction. I sat on Theo's curb, surrounded by cardboard boxes, feeling my life crumble in real time. Each crisis demanded immediate attention, but I could only handle one at a time. The bank won. The branch manager's office felt like an interrogation room. I explained about Wayne, about the credit card, about the forced engagement, but their records showed I'd voluntarily given him access to my accounts. The security guard hovered nearby as my voice rose, as I tried to make them understand the difference between coercion and choice. You gave him your PIN, the manager repeated. You authorized him as a user on your credit card. Because my mother made me. Because they said it was for wedding expenses. The manager's expression remained neutral. I understand this is frustrating, but from our perspective, you provided access willingly. We need to complete our investigation before unfreezing your accounts. I left with nothing resolved. My financial lifeline still severed. Outside, I called my boss back, but the conversation went worse than the bank meeting. My mother had called HR, expressing concern about my mental state. They'd found my recent work emails, sent from my coworker's computer at odd hours, filled with typos and informal language. HR wanted me to undergo a wellness assessment. That evening, Patricia's crisis played out on the local news. Security footage showed her collapsing in Walmart's produce section when Wayne appeared on the overhead screens in an orange jumpsuit. The dramatic fall, the concerned shoppers rushing to help, the tears streaming down her face. It was Oscar-worthy. By nightfall, a meal train had formed. The community rallied around the poor mother whose son had been led astray. My teenage cousin's DM arrived at midnight. Is it true you betrayed the family? Screenshots followed. The family WhatsApp group planning an intervention for my mental health crisis. Aunts and uncles I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly concerned about my well-being, coordinating schedules to stage their rescue mission. I discovered my apartment building had security footage of Wayne's break-in, but accessing it required unfrozen bank accounts to pay the management fee. The footage would auto-delete in 30 days. Another countdown timer on my rapidly exploding life. The pharmacy became another battlefield. The tech recognized me from my mother's missing mentally ill daughter flyer posted on the community board. She hesitated before filling my anxiety prescription, calling the manager to verify. I stood there, feeling the weight of strangers' stares, branded as unstable by my own mother's campaign. My nursing school application stalled next. An apologetic administrator called to explain that my emergency contact, my mother, listed from years ago, had informed them I was taking a mental health break. They'd hold my application indefinitely, until you're feeling better. The family WhatsApp group escalated. My aunt compared this to when I acted out after my father's death, conveniently forgetting I was 10, and had just lost the only parent who saw me as more than an investment. She's always been dramatic about money, someone typed. The message got 17 thumbs up. I tried defending myself via text, explaining that Wayne had stolen from me, but my words got screenshot and shared with creative context. My complaint about buying him coffee once 2 years ago got paired with my current accusations, making me look petty and vindictive. The library became my office, but even that sanctuary crumbled. The librarian noticed me printing hundreds of pages about fraud and embezzlement. Someone had distributed a community alert about a woman fixated on a local family. Security arrived as I gathered my papers, escorting me out like a common criminal. Small losses accumulated like paper cuts. Wayne still received my HBO Max login emails, tracking my IP location through the account. I had to abandon it, losing access to the shows that provided my only comfort. My last watched show? A documentary about family betrayals. The algorithm had developed a sense of irony. 5 nights sleeping in my car took their toll. I sent work emails from a McDonald's parking lot, the exhaustion showing in every typo and informal phrase. HR scheduled a mandatory wellness assessment for the following week. My professional reputation, built through years of sacrifice, crumbled in real time. My college roommate Victi reached out with sympathy, but no help. Her husband's new job, at Patricia's brother's firm. We need this income, she texted. I believe you, but I can't risk it. Another ally lost to Patricia's strategic web. Even Starbucks became hostile territory. The barista I'd known for years asked me to take my laptop and leave. Other customers had complained about the woman from the news making them nervous. She showed me my photo in the community safety Facebook group, a candid shot of me looking haggard outside the bank, captioned, local woman harassing elderly mother. Wayne's lawyer subpoenaed my Venmo history. They found comedy gold, a $20 fantasy football payment I'd labeled for gambling debt 2 years ago. In the hands of a skilled attorney, my joke became evidence of my pattern of enabling gambling behavior. Professional references evaporated like morning dew. My mentor from work admitted she couldn't provide recommendations anymore. Patricia's best friend ran HR at every major firm in town. The network I'd spent years building turned into a prison of whispered warnings and closed doors. The grocery store incident broke something inside me. Proving Wayne stole required admitting I'd given him my PIN once for groceries. The store happened to be next to a casino. His lawyer painted a picture of me as an enabling girlfriend who'd changed her mind after a breakup. My truth became their fiction. I treated myself to 1 beer after a small legal victory. The judge agreed to review my evidence request, but someone photographed me at the bar, sitting alone with my laptop. Within hours, the image circulated on Facebook. Mentally ill woman drinking alone while family seeks help. The comments poured in about addiction running in families, about children who abandon their mothers. The realization hit me during another sleepless night in my car. This would end with one of us destroyed. Either I'd finish homeless and unemployable, my reputation shredded beyond repair, or Patricia would spend her remaining years visiting her son in prison. There was no middle ground, no peaceful resolution. We were locked in mutual destruction, 2 women willing to burn everything for our versions of justice. My phone, the flip phone that had become my lifeline, buzzed with another text, this time from a number I didn't recognize. Your mother says you need help. We're praying for you at church. Even strangers had chosen sides. I sat in that dark parking lot, counting the days until the security footage deleted itself, until my bank accounts might unfreeze, until the wellness assessment that might end my career. 25 days until the evidence disappeared. 7 days until HR decided my fate. 30 days of frozen accounts. The countdown had begun, and I was already behind. Patricia joined my former hiking group the following morning. I saw the announcement on their Facebook page while scrolling through my phone in the Walmart parking lot. She wore the same boots my mother had bought me for college, a detail that made my skin crawl. The group welcomed her warmly, commenting on her enthusiasm for nature photography. Within days, she'd gathered enough information about my habits to track track my movements. I told the legal aid lawyer about Wayne's threat during our rescheduled meeting. Patricia told the judge I'd threatened to ruin Wayne's life. We both passed polygraphs because we each believed our version of events. The truth had become subjective, shaped by perspective and desperation. My old text to my mother surfaced in Patricia's filing. "I'll do whatever makes you happy," I'd written during freshman year, desperate for approval. Now it served as evidence of my transactional thinking pattern. My teenage desperation had been weaponized against me. My 5-year-old nephew started telling his preschool teacher that Auntie was sick in her brain. The teacher, a mandated reporter, filed concerns with Child Protective Services. My sister-in-law called me crying, begging me to fix this before they investigated her parenting. Another relationship sacrificed on the altar of this war. The neighbor's Ring camera footage showed me leaving at 3 a.m. multiple times over the past month. I'd been fleeing harassment, but the timestamps painted a picture of paranoid behavior. Patricia's lawyer presented it as evidence of mental instability rather than a fear response. Mediation failed spectacularly. The mediator noted my refusal to acknowledge family financial interdependence common in immigrant families. She saw my resistance as the barrier to resolution, not recognizing the manipulation underneath. Cultural expectations had become my cage. My last ally at Mother's Church pulled me aside after service. She'd overheard discussions about power of attorney forms. They'd already drafted paperwork claiming I was mentally incompetent. The forms sat in the church office, waiting for the right moment to file. Patricia's Instagram stories documented her journey, supporting loved ones through mental health crisis. Each post included carefully angled photos taken outside my workplace. She wanted me to know I was being watched, that nowhere was safe from her surveillance. My former therapist received a subpoena for session notes from grief counseling after my father's death. Years-old mentions of financial anxiety and fear of becoming like my mother now served as ammunition. Even my healing had been turned against me. What a nightmare spiral this is becoming. Patricia joining the hiking group with those same boots is such a creepy power move. She's literally stepping into every corner of this person's life. I tried recording Patricia at the grocery store, hoping to capture her real intentions. She spotted me immediately and announced loudly that she was being stalked by her friend's sick daughter. Security intervened, and I found myself banned from the only affordable grocery store within walking distance. My mother had listed me as emergency contact for my cousin's daycare 2 years ago without telling me. Now I faced potential abandonment charges if I didn't respond to pickup calls. Every connection to my family had become a legal trap. Professional references continued withdrawing support. LinkedIn messages from concerned family friends warned them about associating with unstable individuals. My former supervisor apologized but explained she had her own reputation to protect. Patricia's network had poisoned every professional well. A recently released inmate approached me at the gas station. He delivered Wayne's message with a smile. His mother visited every week, and they talked about me constantly. The prisoner network had become another surveillance system, tracking my movements through a web of criminal connections. My mother sent a formal letter through her lawyer. She'd drop everything if I signed an affidavit stating I'd misunderstood family arrangements. The document would absolve them of any wrongdoing while admitting my mental instability. Freedom came with the price of manufactured insanity. My refusal triggered her next move. She posted an old video of teenage me promising to take care of her forever. The caption spoke of broken promises and ungrateful children. Comments flooded in supporting her, condemning me for abandoning my poor mother. Then everything shifted. I discovered the life debt story was true. Patricia had helped my mother obtain legal status 26 years ago. The citizenship papers, dated a year before my birth, confirmed the timeline. My existence had been planned as repayment before I'd even been conceived. The bank safety deposit box inventory from my father's death contained more than insurance papers. He'd been documenting the arrangement for years, but I'd been too grief-stricken to examine the contents properly. Folder after folder revealed his growing understanding of what they'd done to me. The documents showed my mother genuinely believed raising a successful daughter would honor Patricia's sacrifice. In her mind, she wasn't selling her child. She was fulfilling a sacred obligation. The cultural weight of life debts had warped her perception of motherhood itself. My grandmother finally admitted the truth when I cornered her at the senior center. Patricia had saved our entire family from deportation. Without her intervention, they'd have been sent back to a country torn apart by civil war. I existed because of Patricia's sacrifice, my grandmother explained, tears streaming down her weathered face. She provided photos proving the debt, immigration documents, lawyer fees Patricia had paid, evidence of the risks she'd taken. But when I asked her to testify, she refused. Protecting her remaining family relationships mattered more than supporting me. Blood might be thicker than water, but survival was thicker than both. I started calling relatives with concern about my mother's delusions. I'd learned her tactics, using the same worried tone she'd deployed against me. Two could play at weaponizing family concern. Each call planted seeds of doubt about her mental state. My next therapy appointment coincidentally overlapped with Patricia's. I spent the waiting room time bonding with her therapist over the stress of caregiving. The therapist mentioned how Patricia cried about failing everyone. Even my enemy's pain had become intelligence to gather. An old USB drive from my father's belongings changed everything. It contained scanned documents about the original immigration arrangement, including details of a questionable marriage that had facilitated my mother's entry. The web of deception went deeper than I'd imagined. My father's mistress emerged from the shadows with her own demands. He'd promised her money for keeping quiet about the family arrangement. She wanted her silence fee, adding another creditor to my growing collection of problems. Everyone wanted their pound of flesh from this situation. Managing both battles while fielding the mistress's threats caused me to miss the unemployment filing deadline. 6 weeks of benefits vanished because I'd been too overwhelmed to submit paperwork on time. Every small mistake cost money I didn't have. Gas or food became a daily choice. Legal aid dropped my case due to overload while Patricia used retirement savings and church loans to hire a premium lawyer. The justice system had become another arena where money determined truth. My free lawyer couldn't compete with her paid advocate. I confronted my mother at my father's grave on his death anniversary. The groundskeeper called police about a domestic disturbance in the cemetery. Even my grief had become criminal. 2 officers separated us while she wailed about her ungrateful daughter disturbing sacred ground. Consulting contracts evaporated when clients discovered my connection to Wayne's embezzlement case through Google. My replacement? Patricia's church friend's daughter. Every professional opportunity had been strategically eliminated, leaving me financially suffocated. Living in my car meant parking in 24-hour Walmart lots and showering at truck stops. Meanwhile, Patricia redecorated my mother's spare room with Wayne's prison artwork. He'd taken up painting in jail, and his mother displayed his mediocre watercolors like masterpieces. My uncle intercepted me outside the grocery store after my father's memorial dinner, an event I hadn't been invited to. He begged me to stop torturing my mother over old promises. She was all they had left of my father, he said. My pain meant nothing compared to maintaining their comfortable delusions. My research into immigration fraud inadvertently triggered panic in the church secretary who'd helped with paperwork 25 years ago. Her grandchildren were born here. Her life built on documents I was now questioning. She begged me to stop before ICE noticed discrepancies. Her family blamed me when immigration authorities started reviewing old green card marriages from that era. The investigation had already been underway, but my inquiries provided a convenient scapegoat. Another family destroyed by proximity to this mess. I continued pursuing evidence despite knowing I was terrorizing an elderly woman who'd helped my family survive. The moral weight of my actions pressed down like lead, but stopping meant surrendering to their narrative. Justice and cruelty had become indistinguishable. My last supportive friend sat sat with me in my car during a particularly cold night. She asked the question I'd been avoiding. What if the debt was real and my success was the payment? The possibility that their twisted logic had some cultural validity made me sick. I'd been raised as currency, but did that make the debt legitimate? Desperation drove me to LinkedIn. I posted about my father's sewer slide and my mother's role in his despair, sacrificing my professional image to control the narrative. If they wanted to destroy my reputation, I'd burn it down myself on my own terms. My father's documents included margin notes that broke my heart. She only loves what you achieve, not who you are, he'd written beside my report card. I'd brought home straight A's that day, but he'd seen through the performance to the pain underneath. He'd known what they were doing to me. Wayne's lawyer filed a motion to expedite the hearing based on my escalating harassment of his incarcerated client's family. My legal aid lawyer had CVID, leaving me to face the motion alone. The system moved fast when protecting criminals, slow when defending victims. Prison call recordings revealed Patricia truly believed her immigration help had saved my mother from desperate circumstances. In her mind, she was a savior collecting a reasonable debt. The depth of her delusion made her more dangerous, not less. Documents showed Patricia had endured a difficult arranged marriage for 5 years to help my mother immigrate legally. She'd sacrificed her own happiness for our family's future. The life debt wasn't just financial, it was written in years of her own suffering. I struggled with the decision but ultimately protected my father's privacy. Using financial documents instead of his sewer slide note as evidence felt like choosing his dignity over my legal advantage. Even in death, I couldn't bear to let them dissect his pain for their purposes. The enemy's tactics had become my education. I learned to cry on command during depositions, to weaponize vulnerability in mediation, to express concern that cut deeper than accusations. My mother had raised a monster, just not the kind she'd intended. Patricia's financial records arrived through legal discovery. Patterns of control emerged. Every major purchase, every financial decision for 30 years showed her influence. She'd been the puppet master all along, with my mother as her willing marionette. Small victories felt hollow. Proving Patricia had lied about dates should have been satisfying, but Wayne's daughter posted a TikTok that same day. She cried about missing her dad while comments called me a homewrecker. Children had become casualties in our war. The mediator suggested I reimburse my family for education costs, since I was refusing cultural obligations. The immigrant community representative nodded along, seeing logic in making me pay for the privilege of my own grooming. Cultural context had become a weapon against me. Everything hinged on my father's mistress. She'd testify about what he told her in exchange for me dropping fraud claims against her. My father's secret life had become my only leverage. His betrayal of my mother, my only ammunition. The father's margin notes on that report card saying, "She only loves what you achieve, not who you are," reveal he understood this arrangement was destroying his child but couldn't stop it. Wayne's daughter sent an Instagram message that made me sob in my car. She reminded me how I'd tutored her in math, how I'd promised to help her with college applications. Her profile picture still showed the calculator I'd given her for her birthday. Even kindness had become evidence against me. Former colleagues divided into camps. Some saw cultural obligation, others recognized abuse. Immigrant co-workers remained notably silent, understanding both perspectives too well to choose sides. The divide cut along lines of experience and survival. My lawyer explained the harsh reality. Financial abuse required proof of coercion, not just expectation. Cultural obligations weren't illegal. Guilt wasn't coercion in legal terms. The law didn't recognize emotional manipulation as a crime. My suffering had no legal remedy. Employment records arrived through proper channels. They revealed my mother's documented income patterns, decades of financial dependence hidden behind cultural expectation. Every raise I'd earned had triggered a family crisis requiring exactly that amount. The pattern was too precise for coincidence. The records confirmed what I'd suspected. My mother's salary couldn't support her lifestyle. Every luxury, every comfort had come from me. She'd been a financial parasite dressed in maternal love, feeding off my success while demanding gratitude for the opportunity. My father's discovery of the arrangement while my mother was pregnant explained so much. He'd stayed to document evidence rather than leave, choosing investigation over escape. His love had manifested as evidence gathering, treating me like a case file instead of protecting his daughter. The mistress provided audio recordings of their conversations over 3 years. My father's voice, discussing the arrangement with clinical detachment, revealed his strategy. He'd believed documentation would eventually free me. He'd chosen evidence over therapy, investigation over intervention. The recordings forced me to confront an ugly truth. My father had treated me like a case to solve rather than a daughter to save. His love had been analytical, not protective. I'd been orphaned by both parents in different ways. I committed to using the evidence strategically. The calculator my parents had raised had finally emerged. Every move would be measured, every emotion deployed for maximum impact. They'd created their own destroyer. Patricia's affidavit about helping a desperate woman contradicted the timeline. She'd helped before the situation was desperate, proving prior arrangement rather than emergency assistance. Her own words had become the trap that caught her. I presented the timeline without emotion during the next hearing. Patricia's face crumbled as she realized her testimony had trapped her. Her daughter fled the courtroom crying, unable to watch her mother's story unravel. The local immigrant community began questioning similar arrangements. My story spread through WhatsApp groups, forcing uncomfortable conversations about life debts and children raised as repayment. The cultural foundation of their exploitation was finally being examined. The next hearing was scheduled for 8 months out. Both sides prepared for a war of attrition rather than quick resolution. Justice moved slowly, while revenge required patience. We settled in for a long siege. The mistress's audio recordings arrived through her divorce lawyer the next morning. I listened to my father's voice discussing my situation with detached precision, like a scientist observing lab results. 3 years of conversations, each more damning than the last. He'd known everything and chosen documentation over protection. The authentication process required meeting with forensic audio experts. I sat in sterile offices while technicians analyzed voice patterns and background noise. Each confirmation felt like another nail in my childhood's coffin. The evidence was real, admissible, and ultimately useless without proving coercion. Patricia's timeline contradiction became my obsession. I mapped every date, cross-referenced immigration records with family photos. The evidence showed she'd helped my mother 2 years before any supposed desperation. Their arrangement predated crisis by design, not circumstance. During the next hearing, I presented my findings without emotion. Patricia's face transformed as she realized her own testimony had created the trap. Her daughter rushed from the courtroom, unable to watch her mother's narrative collapse. The judge noted the discrepancy, but explained that prior arrangement didn't automatically equal coercion. My calculator brain had finally emerged. Every interaction became strategic, every emotion deployed for effect. I learned to mirror Patricia's breathing patterns during mediation, creating unconscious discomfort. Small psychological warfare tactics my mother had inadvertently taught through years of manipulation. The mediation room held 30 family members for our final attempt at resolution. My side remained notably empty, except for my father's mistress, who sat rigidly in the corner. My childhood best friend had chosen to sit with my mother, her loyalty purchased through years of careful cultivation. Financial forensics revealed the full pattern. 25 years of documentation showed every raise I'd earned had triggered a family emergency requiring that exact amount. The precision was mathematical, not coincidental. My success had been harvested with surgical accuracy. The church treasurer's conscience finally cracked under IRS audit pressure. She admitted to falsifying donation records, but only because federal investigators threatened her own freedom. Her testimony confirmed financial irregularities but couldn't prove my mother's knowledge of the scheme. The mediator recommended family therapy and gradual separation rather than legal remedies. She noted dysfunction without criminality, moral wrongs without legal violations. The system wasn't designed to address emotional manipulation dressed as cultural obligation. My father's recordings underwent final authentication. His mistress's divorce lawyer had maintained copies for her protection, creating an unbreakable chain of custody. The audio was admissible but ultimately proved only that he'd known about the arrangement, not that it constituted legal wrongdoing. Evidence mounted showing systematic manipulation, but the legal framework offered no remedy. Emotional abuse without physical component remained invisible to the law. Morally wrong didn't translate to legally actionable. My suffering had no courtroom solution. Patricia's breakdown during testimony revealed her genuine belief. She couldn't lose Wayne after almost losing him to childhood illness 20 years ago. Her tears were real, her pain authentic. Monsters rarely recognize themselves in mirrors. The judge offered me a choice: pursue criminal fraud charges with minimal success probability, or accept a no-contact order with financial separation. Criminal prosecution would require proving intent to defraud from the beginning, an impossible standard given cultural context. I chose the no-contact order. Freedom mattered more than revenge. The decision meant accepting I'd never recover the hundreds of thousands I'd lost, but continuing the fight would only deepen the wounds. Sometimes victory meant walking away. The final order granted me autonomy, but couldn't restore what I'd lost. No legal document could return my childhood or resurrect my father. The court could separate our futures but not repair our past. Justice had limits I hadn't anticipated. Moving across the country became my only option. I packed my car with what remained of my possessions, each item a reminder of what I'd sacrificed for manufactured love. The consulting work I'd found required starting over in a city where my name meant nothing. Community reactions split along predictable lines. Some saw an ungrateful daughter abandoning her poor mother. Others recognized multi-generational trauma finally breaking its cycle. My story became a cautionary tale told differently depending on the teller's perspective. I established new routines built on paranoia. Security systems, quarterly phone number changes, mail through a P.O. box. Freedom required eternal vigilance. Every knock at the door, every unknown number triggered the old fear. Safety was a practice, not a destination. 3 years passed in careful reconstruction. I built a new career under my legal name but kept my personal life invisible. Social media remained abandoned, professional networks carefully curated. I existed in the spaces between visibility and hiding. The anniversary of my father's death brought an unexpected discovery. An unsigned card waited at his grave, containing a single line: "The debt was never yours." The handwriting could have been my mother's or Patricia's. Even in attempted absolution, they remained ambiguous. Work trips occasionally brought me through my hometown's airport. I'd learned to navigate with peripheral vision, avoiding eye contact while staying alert. The city that raised me had become a minefield of potential encounters. Then it happened. 3 years after the court order, I spotted Patricia at the international terminal. She looked decades older, her designer clothes hanging loose on her diminished frame. Our eyes locked across the crowded space. Time slowed as we faced each other. She mouthed something I couldn't decipher. The words could have been "I'm sorry," or "It's your fault," or something else entirely. The ambiguity felt appropriate. Some communications were never meant to be clear. I turned away first, choosing forward motion over confrontation. My flight was boarding, taking me back to my carefully constructed life. Behind me, Patricia remained frozen, a ghost from a life I'd escaped but never fully left. The boarding agent scanned my ticket. I walked down the jetway knowing the truth. Some debts are paid by walking away forever, even if you never stop checking over your shoulder. Freedom was a journey, not a destination, measured in distances maintained rather than bridges burned. My phone buzzed with a work email as the plane door closed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges in my rebuilt life. The past would always shadow me, but it no longer defined my direction. I'd paid my debt by refusing to acknowledge its existence. The plane lifted off, carrying me back to my chosen life. Below, the city that had shaped me grew smaller until it disappeared entirely. Some exiles were self-imposed, some freedoms were cages, and some victories looked exactly like defeat. But they were mine to choose, and that made all the difference. I've enjoyed our time questioning things together. Take care, friend.